Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Thomas Davis. I'll be your meditation facilitator for the day. Trudy is on an excursion. She's doing well. She told me the other day she's feeling a lot better these days. So that's a positive sign and also evidence that your meta practice is having some effect. So I wish you well in your continuance of that good effort. I hope you've all been well. We are seeing a lot of monumental shifts in our country, and they may be positive for some people, negative for others. I don't know, but all I'm calling it are shifts, and these shifts have impact. They change the I don't know. They have some impact on our ideas of who we are and what we're doing, and what other people are doing. And yeah, I'm just extending some acknowledgement that, there may be what could be called a deficiency of stability. And there's multitudes and a plethora of reasons for these experiences of the instability. But today, we're going to endeavor to find some means of reconciling these experiences. And there's this place, this designation called the present moment. And the present moment is where we can assemble ourselves or find ourselves assembled without so much of the things that were affecting us beforehand. And it's interesting about the simplicity of the present moment. As I was reflecting last night about this, is that being able to, I would say, acquiesce or ascertain the present moment, the quality and the meaning of the present moment is really a way of really learning how to manage our time, because we're all on this time continuum. And when we find ourselves distracted or entangled in some sort of intangible idea or experience that we're having with ourselves, time is still moving on. It could be minutes, seconds, or days or longer that time has been, I won't say wasted, but it's a period of time when we reflect on that we didn't have the clarity that we desired to have. And so when we find ourselves in the clarity of the present moment, it's kind of like the best time that we can spend, because we're seeing things as they are, and we're not caught up in the tangle of not knowing where we are or how we got there. So I just was thinking about how mindfulness is a vehicle to reclaim our time, because none of us really wants to waste time. And I don't think any of us really have time to waste. And I hope that our time here this morning will be beneficial for you, and that it will meet some unknown needs, unforeseen needs that may present themselves. Um, Aside from that, I think we can prepare to practice. Um, I'm thinking along the themes of compassion and kind of the idea of how compassion may be needed in some of the hidden places of our being, that we don't readily present to other people. There's a lot of protectionism and guardedness that that is called upon in our society these days. Sense of suspicion, and that could be really exhausting after a while when you just don't seem to be able to find a way to let your guard down. And in my perspective, compassion can maybe soften that disposition a little bit, at least to acknowledge that this is the way that maybe we have been allowing ourselves to be, is in a very tightly wrapped, guarded, protected, suspicious, wary, vigilant type of disposition. It's very subtle, but it's just something that I was reflecting on. And I just would invite you to just to allow yourself to be as open and as free as possible um, in your space so that you can just allow what needs to arise, and doing that from a foundation of that, things are okay in this moment. Again, reclaiming the clarity of the present moment. So I want to invite you just to take a deep breath with me on the count of three. 1, 2, 3, and inhale and release. And just notice how your body is responding. And let's look at this again by taking another deep breath on the count of three. 1, 2, 3, and inhale and release. And again, notice how the body responds. If the body releases some sort of energy or opens up some sensations in the body. And just settle into the idea that you're just going to allow yourself to naturally find contentment. It doesn't have to be fast or rushed, but just allow your sense of contentment to come forth. And notice how the body adapts and even seems to follow your intention of contentment. Keeping your air pathways open, allowing your body just to continue to adjust. and noticing the energy that is awakening. It's very subtle energy in the body. See if you can allow yourself to listen to stillness and how it speaks, how it feels. Keeping your air pathways open, and perhaps looking with greater interest at the whirling dynamics of the energies that lie beneath the skin of your being. How dynamically they move and change form, shape, and even temperature randomly. What we are observing is the second foundation of mindfulness, which are feeling tones. allowing your air pathways to remain open, to support your exploration of mindful awareness of the energetic dimensions of the body. Through the practice of stillness, you may get a foretaste of the idea that emptiness is possible. And you may sense a experience of separation between your contentment and the story of the anxiety and frustration that you've held. They may still be adjacent, but they're not the dominant factor. Slowly, they're losing their grip on your attention. allowing your air pathways to remain open and functional. We're continually observing the dynamics of the breath. And we're rooting deeper into the dynamics of feeling tones, the energetic dimensions of this body. Keeping your air pathways open in a very subtle way. I want to invite you to the third dimension of mindfulness, which is mindfulness of mind itself. And the invitation is to simply observe what is the mind producing. Is it persistently on the same idea, the same note to self, the same story after all this time? Is it unrelenting? And persistently stubborn on getting the same idea, this same repeated idea across? See for yourselves. See for yourselves if any of this is relevant to the clarity that this present moment may be offering. In meditation, we let go and practice letting go of many, many things on many levels. But that letting go doesn't occur without something we never let go of, which is our discernment. Which allows us to look at our direct experience objectively. So, with this power of discernment, I invite you again to look at the nature of your mind and to see if you can discern what is relevant. The mind offers jewels as well, but you have to discern for yourself the difference between a precious mineral produced by the mind and what is just fodder. With your air pathways open and functional, the invitation is become more universally aware of your body, your breath, your feeling tones, and the dimensions of mind. And appreciating just the fact that you have all of these dimensions simultaneously alive at this one moment. Increasing your capacity for awareness. becoming more intimately involved and curious about yourself, and that you are not only what you think. Compassion is one of the deepest forms of something that we know as intimacy. And intimacy is not sustained by words alone. Oftentimes, it is the absence of words that provides a foundation for intimacy. And even so, compassion is not always sustained by words, but it can find its expression through vibrations and feeling. Keeping the air pathways open, I want to invite you to practice this form of intimacy that we call compassion by allowing yourself to express words of identification and comfort with your inside voice, and allowing yourself to hear your inside voice reverberate within your being. Words of comfort, words of assurance. And noticing for yourself if and how your feeling tones respond to that. If you are offering yourself some sort of phrase in this practice for intimacy and compassion, bring some humility to it. Humility may sound like, I may need some help with this. I'm lost. This is difficult. I'm determined. I've been here before. I will get through this. And I love myself. Each of us here have the capacity to become aware of our own light internally. And for some of us, we haven't seen that light simply because it hasn't gotten dark enough yet. But when you see it, there is no way that you cannot see it. So trust your path, trust yourself, and continue. Continue with confidence. That you have everything you need to finish the course. We'll take a final breath together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, and inhale. And release. Initiate some subtle movement in your limbs, your feet, your fingers, your elbows. If you want to rotate your shoulders or your neck, your license is free to do any of these things. What your body is asking for. I want to thank you this morning for your practice. And I want to just say that mindfulness meditation is presented in many ways, but I'm becoming more convinced that it is a means of exploring parts of ourselves that can be very obscure. If I was to use the imagery of gold or silver or diamonds, you know that those elements don't grow on trees. Those minerals don't grow above the earth, but they are hidden deep within the dark crevices of the earth, and it takes a lot of effort to find them, as well as an acclimation to the dark. And I say that because I am becoming more persuaded that this practice of mindfulness meditation helps us to acclimate to navigating our own dark sides the parts that are not readily apparent. And it gives us a safe means of going into the depths to find our light and to find the value, the deeper value of our human constitution, tangible and intangible. That's my persuasion. I hope that you will find something that's suitable for you in your exploration. We're going to take a break for about 5 minutes. I'll come back at 10:55. Feel free to explore what you need to explore in that time. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you. Well, good morning again, everyone. I want to thank you again for your practice and for showing up and supporting the Inside LA Sunday morning sitting group. And again, for those who have come here late, Trudy invited me to come and substitute for her again this morning. She's doing very well, much better in terms of her health and stability and whatnot. And she'll be back with us in the coming weeks. Um, I wanted to make a request to the community that if you're, I would say to the community to magnify a sense of community. If you are able to share yourself on screen, that would be great. Um, but I'm not gonna get on a soapbox about it or anything. But if you're able to share yourself on screen, that would be great. Just for to deepen the sense of the collective here. I also wanted to make mention, a very honorable mention, to all the women who are present here and those who are not present. We acknowledge that this is Women's History Month, and I just wanted to acknowledge that it was International Women's Day on March 8th, a couple of days ago. So my salute to you and thank you for all that you. Yes, yes, Irene, definitely. Yes, I want to just extend my salute and gratitude to all of you for all that you put up with and the capacity, your innate capacity for life. Um, there are, I'm truly mystified by the capacity of women because the entire civilization is exists because of your existence. The entire civilization, and you are a pillar in the foundation of humankind. I could say more, but I don't think words can really adequately articulate the just how essential you've been and are and continue to be and will be for the furthering of what we're all here for. And just, I would just say in closing on that note is just your tolerance to tolerate the ignorance of mankind and not seeing how essential you are to all of our existence. It's just, it's insulting. It's insulting. And I just appreciate your resilience. I really do. I thank you for your presence and how you just continue to push forward and to support us all in the myriad of ways, spoken and unspoken, seen and unseen. So thank you so much. Thank you. I wasn't really sure on what I was going to talk about today. I know the last time I was here, oh, oh, I guess that's two. I see your You were having some problems with your video. Oh, Marilyn. Yeah, okay, Marilyn, no problem. Um, I was just sharing that, the last time I was here, I was sharing some thoughts about compassion and how compassion meant to be with, at its simplest definition, it meant to be with. And upon that thought, I shared a story about uh, a young man who was a minister, and his grandfather was a minister, his dad was a minister, and he felt compelled to go into ministry. And he couldn't get into a theological school, so he ended up um, being accepted to be a missionary for about 6 months. And during that time, he with the people that he was working with, he ended up seeing how different their lifestyle was, the poverty, the lack of sanitary conditions, the gloom and doom of, just their daily existence, because they lived in a miner's town, and it was a mining community. And their sanitation wasn't great. And, their money wasn't great, and they were poor, but they had to work in these mines in the dark every day, even the children. And after a while, he began to find a need to identify with them and not just be a missionary that comes in all clean and shares Bible studies and prayer groups and whatnot, supporting him in that kind of distant way. But he wanted to kind of come into closer relation to them, which carries this idea of being with, which is a definition of compassion. And so he did that for months. And as he began to offer them his food and his clothing, and he even went deeper into his identification by not bathing as much. He began to take on more of the look and the appearance that they did. And he was fine with it, and they respected him. He didn't lose any kind of respect as their minister, as their missionary, as their mentor, as their teacher, even though on the outside it looked like he was deteriorating. His value went up in their eyes. And so one day, a person from the missionary headquarters came in to inspect him, to see how he was doing on this 6-month trial. And when this person arrived, they couldn't really, they weren't able to recognize him at first, because he had shed himself of all of the trappings of being an important person. And because he had become so identified with the people of that community. And when this important person from the missionary offices came to him and saw him, he fired him for not holding up the standards, for not maintaining the image that was required to be a missionary based on their institution standards. And this was devastating. It was devastating to this young man who was trying to find his life path. And he found something in interacting with this community of miners that he could just give his all to. He gave his food, he gave up his clothing, he even gave up his sanitation. It was of no consequence. And this spiritual institution, a representative of that institution, said, "You are not doing it right." And we're talking about the idea of compassion. How are we supposed to be with someone who is clearly suffering? What extent do we go? How open can our heart be to responding to the needs of others? I'm certain that we've all felt that tension at times. Probably quite, it's pretty prevalent these days, especially with, we have a growing population of people who are mentally ill and homeless and whatnot. We can kind of see these similar effects of humanity. However, the man being as devastated as he was, he went and after he was fired, he went back to the institution and he spoke to the rector of the institution, the guy that saw that he could do it in the first place, the one who actually approved him to go and be a missionary to try out. And he consoled him. And the man took with him a bag of drawings that he made because that was his pastime, was that he would make drawings of the people who are in this miners community. And he would just doodle and, put the drawings away. And then he'd make a new drawing when he saw something else. And he had a bag full of drawings and he shared those drawings with the rector of this missionary institution. And the rector said, "Wow, you really have something here. I think you should pursue the path of an artist." And so that seed was planted in that man's heart and mind. And he went back to the miners community just to live, no longer in the official role of a missionary. And he allowed that seed to germinate of being an artist, and he continued to draw. And then he left and went, I believe it was back to Belgium, where he came from, to pursue a career of being an artist. So this man that I'm describing to you was a real historical account of someone that we know as Vincent van Gogh. And he led a very fabled and tragic kind of life. And he died young, but he didn't live in vain, obviously. But the reason why I'm rehashing this story with you is because I had a question that I wanted to present to you today. And the question that I have not been able to put my finger on or to answer is, Vincent van Gogh never made a dime off of his art while he lived. I saw an auction on TV where one of his letters alone, just a letter to his brother Theo, was sold for like $750,000. And he was in constant communication with his brother Theo during his life. But just one of his letters was worth $750,000. Yet Vincent, while he lived, He simply rented out little boarding rooms, one room with one chair, maybe a bed and a window. And a lot of what he created was looking through the outside of those windows. He never made money. He never became famous. But how I want to frame this is just the idea of why was it necessary for him as an artist? Why was it necessary for him to learn and to experience the dynamics of giving it all away, which he demonstrated in his short tenure as a missionary? He had to go into the Boranage, which was the community. It was defined as the Black Earth country because it was a mining town. And while there, he completely divested himself of all of his recognizable features and trappings and giving away his food, his clothing, and even some aspect of his sanitary health without complaining. Why was that an essential part of him becoming equipped to be an artist? Why did he have to learn how to give it all away? And lastly, I think what I'm pointing this inquiry to is just you and your own life experience in the endeavor of trying to ascertain how one crazy experience contributes to something that seems completely unrelated. We can only really see these things in hindsight. But Vincent, while he was in the Boranage, he didn't see himself as an artist. He was trying to be a missionary. So I wanted to ask you this because our lives are no less complex. And we have something called mindful awareness that we have at our disposal in order to find the clarity and hopefully to find order and meaning. And it's just an opportunity, people, for us to bring our practice to something that's practical, to kind of take it off of the cushion and to bring it into real observation and mysteries. I just wanted to ask you that question now. Liz, I see your hand up, and I'm very open to the feedback of the group.
Thank you and welcome back. Welcome home. Um, Thank you for the amazing meditation. I copied most of it down. Um, I'll read it again. I'll read it again. Um, so I'm not going to speak about Merlin. We don't have much time, but you love this story. Obviously, it's a tremendously important story to you. And I know a little bit about you, not much, but enough. And I want to know from you why this story is so important to you. If you would tell us how this has tremendous meaning for you. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, if you don't, yeah, you're asking me to be vulnerable. I think it's because I really admire people that struggle. I admire people that appear to have gone beyond the limits of normality. And part of what's rooted in my question, Liz, is in looking at the little that I know about Van Gogh's life, I feel like at the core of it, he was very conflicted and probably hurt. And that in his life, he was just trying to find something that equaled the sense of completion that he felt with the people in the Borinage. I feel like he was just trying to find something because that time in it as a missionary, he was free and he was engaged. And maybe the art world, although he was very fluent at it, he had so much more to give that the art world couldn't do anything with, in relationships and so on and so forth, because he had troubles in all of those areas. So I just admire, I respect the struggle. That's what's rooted in my my question.